Hello everyone and welcome to this module. The topic that we are discussing in today's video is CIBIL, the full form being Credit Information Bureau of India Limited. Initially, before discussing what are the contents of CIBIL, let us first understand the meaning of CIBIL and dispute resolution. What is CIBIL? CIBIL is basically the information about the credit standing or the credit payments and the loans which the borrower has taken in the past, and whether he has been able to meet his payments on time or there have been certain amount of delays or defaults in the same process. The first Credit Information Bureau of India Limited was incorporated in the year 2000. It is also a repository of factual information on the credit history and repayment records of the commercial and consumer borrowers. It is established by the Government of India and the RBI, and the legislation has enabled the banks to submit the data to the CIBIL without obtaining the borrower's consent. The major objectives that CIBIL has is the first one being to provide comprehensive credit information by gathering credit related information regarding the commercial and consumer borrowers. So, what is of utmost importance here is that the credit information that has been gathered by the borrowers of the consumers is that they need to be compiled and maintained into a database, and also they need to be shared to the common database so that all the other group members of the CIBIL can also gain from that information. The second important objective is that to maintain a database of this information, and by selling it in the form of credit reports to a closed report and the closed user group of members. The group of members are basically those banks and financial institutions which are taking the information of the borrower before granting them any kind of credit. So, basically let us now understand that how does the CIBIL operate. The first step that is involved is that it collects, collates and disseminates the credit information of the borrowers from its members. Now, who are the members? Members are basically the state financing corporations or the banks and the financial institutions. So, what happens is when they are extending loans to the borrowers, they go through a thorough check of the background of the borrower before extending any kind of credit. So, those information that has been collected by the members of this group are shared and collected at one place in the form of a database. Then what happens? The second step that is involved is that this information will be supplemented by CIBIL with public domain information. Now, what is public domain information? Is that the openly available information on various websites or personal sites of the borrower that are also collaborated with the information that is provided by the borrowers and the closed group members. The third step involved is that it allows the credit grantors to have access to the database to search and gain a complete picture of the payment history of a credit applicant. This is the foremost point which explains the importance of CIBIL, that what does it actually provide to you. It provides a complete picture of the payment history, all the past loans that have been taken, all the various postpaid plans which the customer is currently on, all the credit card payments, whether the borrower is able to pay it on time, on due dates, or is he extending the time, delaying the payments, or involved in any kind of defaults. The next step that is involved is reports that could be obtained from the CIBIL only by members who contribute the data about the borrowers. That means it is not openly available to the public, that only the closed group members have access to this data and they can only use it to get a complete picture of the background of the borrower, whether he is to be depended on or whether loan can be extended to him or not. And lastly, the CIBIL collects commercial and consumer credit related data and collects such data to create and distribute credit reports to the members. So, why is it important to make a differentiation between the consumer borrowers and the commercial borrowers is because the consumer borrowers are usually small amount of loan they need, and that too for personal uses, but the main focus is on the commercial borrowers who are borrowing time and again for their various ventures. So, a close look is kept, a close watch is kept on their previous kind of loan borrowing that they have taken and the previous history of payments, whether they are able to fulfill their all the interest and the main balance and the principal that they have taken on loan on time or not. And one more thing that is important, you can say, according to these information, all the data that is present with you, it can tell you whether your credit score is poor, fair, good or excellent. Now, who are the members of CIBIL? The members of CIBIL are basically the banks, the NBFCs, famously known as, that is the non-banking financial companies, the state financial corporations, the various financial institutions that we have, then housing finance companies and the various credit card companies. They together form the members of CIBIL. That means that not only do they share information, they update the information on the borrowers, but also they get a proper report, a CIBIL information report or a credit information report, we can say, about a particular borrower. That is also known as a CIR, that is a credit information report, that is easily available among these members of CIBIL. And like I mentioned earlier in the previous slide, that this is a closed group and only these members can access and also provide information to CIBIL, and it is not publicly open information for access by anybody. Alright, what are the products and services that CIBIL is offering? The first one being consumer credit information, that all his past information and all, because see, the history of the borrower is used to predict the future, because granting any kind of loan, any kind of credit is in a way involves some amount of risk. So, by this CIBIL score we try to reduce that risk. The risk that is involved in extending credit, we try to reduce it by reading into the past behavior, the past history of that particular borrower, and the borrower can be a consumer borrower or it can be a commercial borrower as well. The second product that we have is a portfolio review report. Portfolio means the various activities, the postpaid terms that he has taken, or maybe any kind of credit card loans that he has taken, or any kind of payment that is involved, loans and for any consumer use or commercial purposes. So, all of that taken together is reported in this product. The third one we have, and the most important one, is the CIBIL TransUnion score. Now, the TransUnion score is the one which decides whether you have a good CIBIL score or a poor CIBIL score. The higher your TransUnion score, the more chances you have of being allotted the loan, and in case you exhibit a very low TransUnion score, then the possibility of extending the loan or even the application of loan gets rejected in several times. Now, CIBIL TransUnion Personal is also the personal report of the various consumers and the borrowers, and the last product that we have is the Bureau Credit Characteristics, known as the BCC. Now, let us understand in detail the loan approval process. So, what happens is the borrower or the applicant fills a loan application form and hands it over to the bank. So, the first thing the bank does before interacting or any kind of meetings with the borrower is that he checks the CIBIL score and gives the report. Now, like I mentioned to you, the trans score that is given to you, so the TransUnion score, in case the score is very low, then what happens, it leads to immediate rejection of the application, and if you have a high CIBIL score, it leads to your eligibility check basis documents. alright, on the basis of documents. In case your eligibility is confirmed, then it will lead to your loan approval, and in case your eligibility is not confirmed because the documents or the KYCs that are required are not readily available or do not match with the public domain information that you have, then it will lead to the non-eligibility and subsequent rejection of the application. This is the entire loan process that has been declared in front of you. Now, another important aspect of CIBIL is how to know your CIBIL score. What you have to do is, first of all, you have to fill your online application. There is the website called www.cibil.com. On that you can go and fill your online application form, and subsequently you can pay the requisite processing fees, complete the online authentication process, and then you will receive the delivery of your credit report on the email that is provided. It can also be termed as a CIR, which is a credit information report. Now, what are the contents of a consumer CIR? CIR, which I told you, is the credit information report. That it has all your personal details, like what is your name and address, then your date of birth. It is very important that all these information should correspond, because as we know that if only name is given, then there is possibility that n number of people are there in this world and in your country as well with the same name. So that is why it is very important that you authenticate all the information that is given: the date of birth, the name, the telephone numbers, the PAN and the passport details, the voter's ID, and what else is mentioned in that is the type of credit that you have taken, the amount of credit that you have taken, what is the outstanding current balance, and days of overdue payment in case there is any overdue. In case you have been meeting your payments on time, then there will be no overdue payment mentioned in that content. Now, what are the contents of commercial CIR? Again, the borrower's information, the personal information is given, the registration number, the relationship details, borrower's enquiries, all the other numbers that are mentioned. And in account, what else you have is the number of credit facilities that have been taken, the status of a suit filed in case there is some important controversy going on or some legislation is going on in that, then the guarantor's details and the borrower's assets classification. So these are the contents of a commercial CIR. Now, what do lenders look for in a CIR? They usually look for the ratios of debt burden ratio, past payment behavior, status of filed suits against the borrower, and then it also sees whether the credit score is high or low, and the last one is the loan accounts of the credit card account. Now, sometimes what happens that the CIR which is generated for you, the credit information report, that you might not agree with it, because there might be some point which has been missed or some point which has not been updated. So in case of that, what you can do is that you go and submit an online dispute form, alright, and dispute fields are relevant section are marked under dispute. Then the dispute is taken up with the concerned leader, and it also depends on the type of the dispute. The lenders accept or reject the dispute, and if the dispute is accepted, then what happens is that the correction is made and the dispute is removed from that, and total turnaround time of this entire process is about 30 days. And whatever thing which you don't agree with on your CIR, if that is accepted by the lender, then what happens is that it is removed or updated accordingly and you receive a new CIR. Now, what are the benefits of CIBIL for a credit grantor? It helps you to know more about the credit worthiness of all the borrowers. It also helps in effective decision making about the grant of the credit. That means if the history of the borrower is good, that means he has been meeting all his outstanding payments on time, there are no defaults, no overdue payments, then it can be an effective decision that the credit can be granted. It also gives a competitive advantage to the person who has all this information, and ascertainment of repayment ability of the borrowers. If he has been paying all his dues in the past, then surely he will be able to meet those payments in the future as well. lower cost of credit evaluation due to automated decision system, and also quick and efficient credit approval process. Because if this data was not available with the various members of the group, then what would happen, a lot of time would be involved in checking the background check of the borrower, and various kind of activities for verification would be required. But all these have been eliminated by a simple information sharing among the members, and it has always benefited the loan approval process and the credit grant process. Now, what is the benefit of CIBIL for the borrowers? They can get faster access to credit if the score is good enough. Obviously, if you have been keeping up with all your payments, all your previous dues are on time, then you can easily get access to credit, because the lenders will just go through your profile, go through your CIR and see how good the credit rating is, and they will immediately grant you extra loan. Then there will be reduced cost of borrowing, and also easy credit assessment and approval process, a process which might used to take in the past when this score was not available, and that too it was very difficult to authenticate the information which is available. And now we have an authentication as well as faster information available to us about the credit score of that particular borrower. Reputation for those borrowers who follow a correct and timely payment behavior, it does enhance the reputation of the borrower if he has been meeting his payments well in time, and it becomes more responsible towards financial commitments. What impacts your CIBIL score? There are few impacts: history, payment history, recent search of credit, and credit utilization. These few points impact your CIBIL score. That means if you have been paying your dues on time, then what happens, that there is a positive growth in your CIBIL score. But in case of delayed payments, in case of defaults, then what happens, that your CIBIL score goes down. Also, if you have been applying to a number of banks and asking for a number of requirements are there present, then what happens is that there is a chance of your CIBIL score dropping. Alright, one thing I wanted to discuss before I come to the close of this video, and that is that you have to be very careful that only those who are the members of the closed group have access to this information, in case to avoid any kind of the history, or because all the information, the KYC and the information, bank details and credit details are mentioned. So this is the reason that it is not available in the public domain, because it might lead to any kind of misuse by the person if it falls into the wrong hands. So that is why only those who are the members of the group have access to this information, and that is just for safeguarding them from the risk of extending credit which might lead to default. So in case you have the history of the borrower, the payment history, and there are no defaults, so the risk of extended credit to that particular consumer or commercial borrower is comparatively less as compared to the risk with a person of no history of any kind of credit. And of course, that needs to be kept in mind when you are going in for your CIBIL score. Thank you.